Welcome to the Headshots Podcast with Dr. Nicole, a 1-hour conversation on mental wellness to improve your look and outlook. During the show, we will talk about a variety of topics which impact you from the inside out. Each show is designed with 3 parts: lights, camera, and action. In our lights segment, we will shed light on a topic around a mental health concern. In our camera segment, we will focus on that mental health concern, educate, and raise awareness. And in our action segment, we will give 3 steps to improve your look and your outlook. So join us for the Headshots Podcast with Dr. Nicole. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Headshots Podcast, an hour conversation on mental wellness to improve your look and your outlook. My name is Dr. Nicole Johnson, licensed counselor, assistant professor, specializing in addictions and trauma services for the community. Thank you to everyone who is joining us here live and to the replay audience. I want to invite you to share, like, and share. We have an awesome show. I'm so excited about our show tonight, and we want everyone to join in. If you and your family are preparing for this election that's in a few short days, that today is Friday and the election is on Tuesday. If you're thinking about the election, get your family together. Join us tonight for Headshots. Tonight's topic is a continuation of our topic last week, which is on election stress. Tonight, we want to talk about how families can be mentally prepared for the results, mentally ready for the results next week. And on October the 12th, in the Mental Health Weekly, which is a publication that is sent out by the American Psychological Association, they noted that the 2020 election is more stressful than the previous 2016 election. And so since this election has been more stressful on not only on individuals, but families, the question then becomes, with a few short days left, how do we mentally prepare for the election? How do we maintain our families, keep our families together with the election that may change so much of our lives? Dr. Arthur Evans, the CEO of the American Psychological Association, noted the uniqueness of this time. We are in the midst of the 2020 election. We are in the midst of a pandemic. We are in the midst of racial tension across our country and our world, and also our economy. People are losing jobs, and we are stressed out about many, many things. The Journal of Counseling Psychology reports that 2/3 of people that were surveyed after the 2016 election showed fear and concern about the future 1 year after the election had occurred. And so what this is telling us is that people may experience fear, anxiety, and stress because of the election. And this fear, anxiety, and stress impacts our interpersonal relationships and impacts our families. We know stress levels because of this study in the Journal of Counseling Psychology. We know that stress levels are high, especially for women and for racial and ethnic minorities. In the days following the election, depending on who wins, certain persons may feel fear of discrimination. They may feel that I lost, my person lost, the person I was rooting for lost. And now, what are the repercussions of that? How am I going to be treated? So we know that stress can impact overall wellness. And so we want to talk tonight about how will this impact the wellness of families? Stress, fear, anxiety, and depression. How will it impact the wellness of families when they may feel stressed about the election? How may it impact interpersonal relationships? So we're going to talk about family relationships. We're going to talk about friends, co-workers. How has this election impacted and brought tension and stress to family and friend relationships. And then overall wellness. If you turn on your news, if you turn on anything related to this election, it is in every time zone, every channel, all day long. Commercials, articles, news media, social media, the election is everywhere. How is that impacting your wellness when you may find yourself overwhelmed by the information? What about your children? I know that I have talked to some of my family members that are children, and even the children are talking about the election. Even the children are impacted by what they are seeing in the adults in their family. And so tonight, we know that from previous elections and from previous studies, that family relationships are at the center of voting, they're at the center of political parties. Family relationships are at the center of election stress. So I decided tonight that we would talk to my family and we would talk about how we are dealing with the election that is coming up. So I want to bring on my siblings tonight. I thank all of them for coming on, and we're going to have a conversation around this topic of election stress in families and how to prepare. So first, we'll have my sister Daiquiri. She is a program director working in social services with homeless persons and persons with HIV. She has a long history of social service in the community. Second, I'm bringing on my sister Monique. She is a violinist. She's a Suzuki and a traditionally trained violin teacher. Next, I'm going to bring on my sister Azure. My sister Azure is an exceptional children's teacher, and she's also an ordained minister. And finally, I'm going to bring on my sister Sierra. Sierra is a forensic investigator. I'm sorry, not investigation. She's an investigator. Okay, so welcome everybody. So greet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us, Gab.
Thanks for being here. So let's get started. Let's talk about election stress and families. So we invite you, our watching audience, we invite you to ask us questions. We invite you to interact with us and anything that you want us to address as we are having this conversation. Feel free, throw it at us, and we'll try to do our best to answer it. So, sisters, my sisters, really my sisters. Um, a study showed that 40% of individuals have had an argument about the election with a close family member or friend. Now, I know as coming up to the election and just talking about the world in general, we've had some arguments. We've had some times and some moments where we have talked about the election, okay, and we have had some arguments. So I want to know, how are we doing as a family? And how are we doing to maintain our relationship? And anybody can just jump in and answer that.
I think the biggest thing for us is that we respect each other's views and we can agree to disagree, but not be disagreeable.
Hmm. Okay,
I
so
also,
go ahead.
I also think too that with us as a family, we know that everybody's voice is so important. So we always hear everyone out. Even though it may be something that we might not see eye to eye on, we're able to allow each other to express our feelings, but then don't lose sleep over it. We're able to just come in and allow each one of us to be who we are, and then allow that to take shape and take form so that
Hmm.
we don't judge each other at the end.
Hmm. Okay.
I also think I also think that we as sisters, we know how to apologize to each other. We don't get it right all the time, but every time that we feel that we wrong, we do take time to reflect on what we did say. And then we will go back to that person and say, "Look, I'm sorry. I apologize for saying this. I didn't mean to offend you or hurt your feelings or something like that." So that's something that I think we do very effectively.
Hmm. So I guess everybody is saying is that, when you have stressful times and topics that it's difficult to talk about, like we all may have different views around the election, but just to knowing the fact that each of us are different. And none of us are going to have all of the answers. None of us are going to be 100% right. We're right in our own eyes. But as far as being right when it comes to everybody else, we respect one another. We respect the fact that we have differing views. And I like the fact that we respect the fact that we may be wrong. And so, in order to maintain family relationships and mental wellness in the families, we have got to learn to come together and have those difficult conversations. And I think that's something that we've been taught in our family. But I think that, it's something that even their families that may not have been taught how to have conversations. But this is a wonderful time to come together and to really talk to each other about what might be going on and how they feel.
And I also think that with families, um, if you just step out and take a chance on those difficult conversations, sometimes you don't always get it right the first time. And even if that's the case, you keep trying until you're able to effectively communicate. And that's the biggest thing of all. Don't be fearful of the conversation. Acknowledge the fear, yes, but then don't be fearful that you took the chance to discuss it.
hmm So, Dak, you're talking about like even having the conversation
Right.
around the election is stressful in and of itself. But like you said, don't be afraid of the conversation because it's like the elephant in the room. And a lot
Hmm.
of times our mental wellness is wrapped around our ability to forge through those difficult conversations and sometimes we may have things going on in our mind. We may have misperceptions of one another. We may think if I say this to my family member about the election, if I say this to my family member about my opinion of what's going on in the world, am I going to be ostracized? Is my family member going to say something nasty to me? Am I going to be isolated? But the fact that it's really important to go ahead and forge into that conversation and how forging in that conversation strengthens the family relationship. It reduces that anxiety, that fear of what's going to happen if I continue to talk to my family members about this topic. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Tay. I mean,
I
Sierra.
really, no problem. I really think that you have to have like a very space, a safe space to sit and talk to somebody, particularly with family members. I mean, sometimes it's easy to have this conversation. Sometimes it's not to have a
Mhm.
conversation, particularly when you disagree with some people.
Yeah. And I really feel that way because there's times when my views may be conservative in some areas. And I know that when we talk about things, we all have different ideas. And sometimes I may feel like, well, if I say this, or if I mention that, what's my sister's going to say? Is this going to start an argument? And sometimes I don't know about y'all, but it gets to the point we've been talking about the election since the last election, and it's almost like I'm tired of talking about this topic. I'm tired
Mhm.
of having arguments about this. I just want it to be over. I just want it to be done. Right.
Right.
And the thing about it is that even though we may have these disagreements at times, and sometimes you may say, "Should I say it?" And then when you do say it, you get jumped on. But that's just the bottom line of being an adult. You're gonna
hmm
get jumped on, and sometimes you just have to say, "Okay, you big enough to dish it, and you big enough to take it." And then we always come together in the end because again, you're still my sister.
hmm
Hmm.
In spite of what you think or in spite of what you feel on certain topics, again, you're still my sister. And tomorrow is another day.
Hmm.
I like that, Daphne. Just remembering that tomorrow is another day, and I think it really kind of confirms the fact that as family members, we need to work on a consistent basis to mentally forge forward into those positive relationships, and where there are negative relationships, to work through them, to talk through them, because in a time like this in the election, we need one another. We really need one another to be a sounding board, to be that comfort for us when we feel afraid, when we feel, that that things are things going to be okay tomorrow? Are things going to, be well? And what the studies have shown is that people after the election in 2016, there was a 3 to 5 fold increase calls of people going into mental health services. There was a need for mental health services, and after the last election, and so we know that people have feelings when they think about the election. So, what are some of the feelings that you've been having around this election? What's some of the things that's been on your mind?
Well, I've been
I would say
anxious
that's
and very, I am riled up. I'm a little angry because I want things to come out a certain way. I don't want to feel that all the work that I've put in has been for naught. Everything
Mhm,
that our parents have taught us about us being African American females is true to life and is even more prevalent today than it was before. So my
mhm,
anger and my anxiousness, and I'm older. I'm in my 50s and I should not feel this, I should not. And I always say I am too old for this type of feeling to happen for someone who's an educated, accomplished African American female, and then I
mhm,
have to deal with foolishness in the world. I'm
mhm,
just angry about it and anxious about what's going to come as of next week, but also being prepared for it if it does come,
mhm.
whatever that is.
Okay. Sierra, you were going to say something?
yeah, I am actually feeling hopeful that people actually did their research to not believe politicians and what they say, to actually physically find the research. I think that this election and these past 4 years, this is the year I've been very interactive. And what I mean by that is I have been reading newspaper articles, and not only that, but I actually been paying attention to like the Supreme Court nominees and things like
Mhm,
that, and the different trials that they've been having
mhm,
and hearings in reference to politics. And this year, I really hope that people aren't taking words that politicians say as gold,
mhm,
as truth,
mhm,
because it's not. So, I mean, it's just not. But it's not only that, but it's, for me, it's also some sadness. It's a
mhm,
sadness in me that some people are, I would say, gullible,
mhm,
naive to think that everything somebody would say is the truth and everything that people promise that they're actually going to do.
mhm.
And it's really, it's really a shame.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I
So go ahead, Ezra.
I feel with this whole election empowered. And the reason why I say I feel empowered is for two reasons. One is because this is the first time that I have two kids. They're small. They talk about the election. They tell me who's telling the truth, who's lying, but I empower them to make very wise decisions. So like today we were watching a show and a commercial came on about someone who's running in North Carolina, and my daughter's like, that's a bad, bad man. They need to vote him out of office. So then I told her the stuff that you see on TV, you have to research all the facts. It's just because somebody's saying something that you have to research it. So I said, you have to make good decisions. So you research before you vote. And she's like, okay, mommy, I got it. So one way is I'm able to empower her and her sister to make very wise decisions. But
Mhm,
also for me, I'm empowered because I vote, but I also realize that my vote is not the only thing. This election has empowered me to realize that I am responsible just as the next person to make sure that my voice is heard, but not
mhm,
only making sure that my voice is heard, but then taking that next step of, okay, I'm not going to rely on the politicians. I'm not going to
mhm.
rely on the government to guide and lead my family to where we need to go. That
Wow.
that's my responsibility. And with God's help, I'm able to do what needs to be done. So I feel empowered.
Okay. Nick, Monique.
Okay. Um, I I feel a little bit of anger, and I also feel um, there's
Mhm,
hope in all of this. I tend to believe that The anger part is the part of people just being gullible, about people not realizing that this is something, what's happening right now is something that they have voted for, sanctioned for so many years. And so therefore this is a time that has not been, this
Hmm.
was coming to a head anyway. And I think people needed to understand that with your decisions, if they're right or wrong, there is a God of
Yes.
justice, there is the God
Yes.
of right and wrong, and there is a God who's an equalizer, and he always goes on the side of justice. And so therefore I'm, angry about that. I mean, not angry that God is the God of justice, but angry that people think
Hmm.
that, oh, if I'm going to do this, then it's going to come out this way. And I'm like, because you can't plan everything. That's one thing. I'm hopeful because of what I do as a teacher, and how I see my students' eyes, and how they don't look at all of the stuff, and they still have wonder, a childlike
Hmm.
wonder. I look at my nieces and they still like dollies and pink and unicorns.
Hmm.
And so I look at the children, and the kids are the ones who talk about a lot of different things and what they were scared of when the last election happened. And I said, you guys are going to be the ones to turn it straight.
Hmm.
So that's where my hope is right now.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I kind of feel everything that you are feeling. There, I work in the field of mental health, so there is a concern about how is this election going to impact the people that I serve, the community. In my own thoughts, I think about the fact that, it could impact how much we make, if we have jobs. We're a pretty stable family, but we have mom that, that we're supporting, and she's supporting us. And what's going to happen to senior citizens? What's going to happen to Medicare? So those are some things that bring me a level of, worry, a level of concern. But then there is a level of hope, because my faith, is something that has been, strengthened in this time. And so I think that I may feel like a lot of us, there's mixed emotions. There's certain times that we do feel angry when we hear certain things or see certain things going in a particular direction. And then there's times where you may feel stressed and overwhelmed because I've heard so much, and I'm sitting here waiting for this ball to drop, waiting for this election to be over so I can breathe. But then there's other times where, like Sierra was saying, I do feel sadness. Sadness because after all of these years, we still haven't gotten it right. We still can't treat each other like human beings. And the formidable things that we learned as children, carrying it into the world. But what happens when other people don't do that? They don't treat you nice, and and you're trying to understand and figure out why. So it can cause stress on a lot of interpersonal relationships. Like I introduced you all, and all of us work in some field. We all work with somebody and some people. So we know from reports that interpersonal relationships are strained. There's a lot of tension in the workplace. There's a lot of tension around the water cooler. There's a lot of tension on our jobs, around race, around the election, around who should win, who shouldn't win. So my question is, how has that come into your workplace, or with your friends, or are there any Facebook people that you've had to X out, because you thought they were someone who appreciated you as a whole person, but you're finding out they don't. They have biases, and they're very vocal and public about it. So how has that impacted you all?
It
So,
hasn't really impacted me at work, only because everybody that I work with, because we work to help people who are homeless, we're like-minded. Our job is
Mm,
to get people housed, make sure they have housing, make sure they have safety, and that sort of thing. So those type of conversations don't come into play. Only time they do is when we talk about funding, because a lot of programs like these social service programs are grant funded.
mhm,
And so our idea is like, okay, is there going to be more mental health, substance abuse funding? Is there going to be more funding for housing, affordable housing for people? That's the main things we talk about. But our main goal, again, is to get people off the street and get them housed.
Hmm. So you're saying that the way it comes in and it impacts you and your thoughts is the fact that, I'm trying to do this great work. I'm trying to help these people that are in need of help. And I can't even help them because I don't even have the proper funding to be able to do the job that I'm really can do. We really don't have it. And we need more. We need someone to honor and to look at these areas and say, oh my goodness, there's more money need to be pushed into counseling, substance abuse, mental health, homelessness. And so I can attest to that it caused me a lot of stress thinking about are our services going to be available for people? I mean, are things going to get better? We keep talking about every time I turn on the TV, we're talking about the pandemic and the mental impact of the pandemic. We're talking about the election and the mental impact of the election. But my question is there going to be funding to help?
And the
Right?
thing is that, the pandemic has sent an influx of funding
Hmm.
into the
Hmm.
city,
Hmm.
to help with homelessness and mental health and things of that nature. But again, how long is that going to last?
Right.
That's the main thing.
Right. Okay. So, I, I go ahead, Nick, Monique.
I was going to
See you,
say
Papa.
that in my field, um, it's I can't say that it's talked about because we're what I do. I'm mostly dealing with children. Some parents, but basically it's about instruction. But that's one facet of what I do. But on the other side of what I do, there are people who I have had to say, okay, goodbye
Hmm.
on Facebook because I just can't subscribe to your thinking. Um, and part of it is because um, everything can't be about money for me. And it can't be about the economy. It has to be the totality of everything. And when you sit there and you look at what people, knowing that African Americans are behind the eight ball when it comes to wealth and generational wealth, and it's okay with a lot of people, because a lot of people voted for, some people. When you see that's okay, and I say, it's not okay. And so I can't subscribe to your thought if you rather have your foot on my neck. And that's all.
And so let's talk about that a little bit, Nikki, because I'm Monique. I'm sorry, I called you your nickname. That's my sister.
It's okay.
Let's talk about that because as a family, there have been times in these past 4 years where we've had to come together financially,
Hmm.
right? Dacry, you have children in college. As Ray, you have little girls, and even though you both have husbands, Monique and Sierra and myself, we're single, but it doesn't mean that family doesn't come together to help each other.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that I really appreciate, which what has reduced the stress, is the fact of knowing that if I was to lose my job today, if the economy stays the way that it is, I have a level of it will be stressful, but I have a level of peace to know that my family has my back.
Mhm.
And I think that's
Mhm.
important to let our audience know that the reason why we need family is because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Right.
We don't know what the future is going to bring. We don't know. We may have to move in together. you know, we may have to downsize in order to survive with the economy and the things like that. And that's why family is so important because even though I may have things that are causing me anxiety, they're causing me stress, causing me to be depressed or fearful, I can come to my family and I can find safety in this group of people. I can find safety in my family because I know that they have my back. And so this is a time, and some people watching, you may have strained relationship with your family, and there may be reasons why you have those strained relationship. And so, but how does forgiveness come in to when we work, when we come together? You know, one thing I wanted to bring up was, but since the pandemic, our mom, has asked us, we used to do family Bible study a long time ago. And this is our faith, right? Christian faith. And mom said, when the pandemic started, mom said, hey, y'all, I want to do Bible study again, just out of the blue. It was just
Mhm.
unexpected. But every Wednesday, when we come together for that designated time, I found a lot of peace in that moment. I found a lot of support, with each person that's taken the turn to talk. And I find that, just coming together, it's even a time for us to talk about our fears and about the things that we're concerned about.
I also found that during that time of Bible study that I learned the most about the struggles that everyone has had
Hmm.
in the past or
Hmm.
currently. Um, some of the stories that you guys, I said, when did that happen? What? And sometimes we just didn't know. I mean, there's some days that we're ships passing in the night. There's some days that we
Hmm.
are every day we're talking and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But we all have our own, personal struggles and our
Right.
own different things. I just remember when, you know, just remembering talking about like an orchestral experience that I had, and everybody's like, "Oh, I didn't know that happened." I said, "Well, yeah, that did, and I probably didn't get hired for that back at that job because it happened." And that
Hmm.
there's topics and there's a whole lot of different things that we go through as African American women
Hmm.
in our chosen fields,
Hmm.
and to constantly, like Dacre said, to constantly have to go through hoops and jumps to prove that you're smart enough, good enough, doing
Hmm.
everything that you have to do, it's ridiculous. And you've seen people who had less or as much and don't work as hard just walk through.
And
But
these are some of the things that, again, that mommy and daddy taught us.
Yes.
They told us that these things would happen. And like I said before, the anchor for me comes because I am seeing everything that they said. Not that I didn't
Mhm.
believe it. I always
hmm.
knew it, but I've seen it more now than I ever had throughout my entire life.
Hmm.
And then with me having an 18-year-old female daughter and a 23-year-old male son, African American, that, you know, is something that also causes me a lot of anger as well, because my children are very thoughtful, they're very smart, but I also have to teach them how to be street smart,
Hmm.
and also have to tell them how to, we have to have the talk like everybody else does.
Hmm.
Where I have a son who is very, very analytical about anything, everything, and I'm very, very philosophical when he discusses the election, because his bottom line is, Mom, why do you stress yourself out about this stuff? I'm living my life. I'm doing my job. I'm finishing up so I can graduate. Why are you so stressed out about this? It doesn't matter, which makes sense.
Hmm.
But because as a parent, I'm looking down the road
Hmm.
and trying to say, should I be concerned or should I not be concerned? And that's the big issue.
So I think as a family, those concerns come up because I don't want anything to happen to my niece or my nephew. I don't want, anything to happen to them. And that's a level of worry. That's a level of fear. And so we've been talking about the things that we're doing and we're experiencing. And so let's talk to the families that are watching. What are some of the things that you would advise families that are feeling the pressure of this time, feeling the responsibility to perform? What I mean by vote, and vote in this direction or vote in that direction. What would you tell them when they are having arguments? When one person is going in one direction? As I have read a study that said that Thanksgiving dinner after the last election was 30 to 50 minutes shorter. And because people were at Thanksgiving dinner with relatives that were from different political parties. And so what that's telling me is the fact that this issue around election, around politics, it drives deep wedges in families. It drives deep holes in families. It can cause even a festive time to turn into an aggressive adversarial time. And so, what are some things that we could share with families that may be watching or people that are watching that their family is going through a rough time right now because of this election? What are some things that you would tell them?
Just say it's not that deep. Because at the
Not
end of
that
the
deep,
day, with
right? That
COVID, your family needs to be protecting their health as well.
yes.
And this extra stress of trying to not get COVID, to try
Hmm.
to stay safe,
Hmm.
wear your mask or not wear your mask or whatever,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, and
Yeah.
if anybody becomes ill or worried or stressed out, the only people you have for real is family.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether you know, and this is a time, and now really think about this. All of us are still here.
Thank you,
Hmm.
Jesus.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who are no longer here.
Right.
That
And
right.
we're coming up on the Thanksgiving season where we need to be thankful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And
Mm-hmm.
I
because
agree.
of that, again, bonds need to be closer. I understand
Bonds.
you're angry. I understand things may have happened. And sometimes it takes a little longer for
Yes.
that bond to grow.
Hmm.
But give it a shot.
Hmm.
Give it a
I,
shot.
I like that. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. Go
I
ahead.
also.
I would
Oh, go ahead, Tay.
thank you. Thank you. I will also say, like, I am piggybacking on Daiquiri that you should just let it go. But not only that, not only the politics of this whole election, but also the issue of whether or not the coronavirus is real. That's something that some people believe is real and some people don't believe it's real. But you are absolutely right that your family is more important than anything in the world.
Hmm.
And they are the ones that do have your back no matter what. And also, since we're all supposed to be socially distancing, we won't be having Thanksgiving dinner. So maybe that time away from our family
Right.
may mend and heal relationships.
Oh, I like that, Tay. That sometimes when you have the privilege, we take it for advantage.
Yep.
When
Hmm.
I can call my family member or go to
Yes.
my family member, see my family member, I may take for granted the closeness and the proximity I have and the access I have with them. But now that we can't be too near each
Right.
other, maybe this is a time that we start to mend those important relationships that are so valuable for mental wellness.
Hmm.
That people know that when their family relationships are strong, we have we have more mental wellness. We have, even if mental health issues arise, we know that healing and comfort is increased when there
Hmm.
is supports, when there's support systems. I'm sorry, somebody else want to go ahead. That was
Yeah,
just
I
good
wanted to
point.
say that that there has to be a level of listening as well.
Hmm.
One of the interesting things that I remember reading, The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama, and one of the things that he talked about in that book was that you have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have Independents. Everybody pretty much wants the same things. Most people
Yes,
want the same
yes.
things. We all want a roof over our heads,
Mm-hmm.
food on
Hmm.
the table, clothing on our backs, people who love us around us,
Yes.
Hmm.
and maybe enough money to go on a vacation or something at the end of the year. And I mean, really, and that's basically it in a nutshell. I mean, on the level of, these are the basic things that everybody should be able to have.
Hmm.
And so, but we go about getting those things differently. And that's where most of the family problems get to.
Hmm.
How do we get to there's a means to the end. So how do we get to that end
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
without killing each other?
Right.
Yes.
How do we
Right.
get
Yeah.
to that end
Yeah.
without getting into several different arguments?
Hmm.
And I think, one of the exercises, for me, one of the things that I did, um, was, when I had coworkers who were not people who believed what I believed. I just listened to what they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes listening, you sit there and you say, "Oh, I can see how you can see that."
Mm-hmm.
But then you explain your side of the view. And then sometimes when you explain it in that way, they'll say, "Oh, okay, I see that." But there's also a level of ignorance when it comes to that, because I always just say the Black experience is something that people can't understand because they don't have to understand.
Mm-hmm.
We as African Americans are taught how to know everybody else's history but our own. And so therefore, but that mom and dad took care of that. They took, we had Black history. We had lots of Black history in this house. So lots. And so therefore, I just say that sometimes we have to know way more so that we can deal with other people,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
so that we can get the things that we all want.
Right.
And we
I
have to
like that.
navigate the world differently.
Yes,
We
we
Yeah.
do.
do.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We live by a different code
Yes.
Yeah.
that has
Mhm.
been ingrained in us since we were little girls.
And I
Right.
think that's interesting to have family members that understand that. So you may go and you may have friends, and nothing wrong with friends
Mm-mm.
that are not, that don't look like you, and they're different
Right.
friends.
Right.
But it's always good to have that family to come back to, that
Mhm.
is the core of who we are, the family that is that safe place that knows exactly what I'm talking about because
Mhm.
they've endured as well.
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Azure?
I think the other thing is oneness. I mean, basically, even though we deal with this election and Thanksgiving is coming up, we have to be intentional to have oneness. And
Hmm.
so many of you already said that, we all want the same things, but having a level of oneness allows you to all be on the same, it's like one accord on the same wavelength in terms of how you think about your family. I think
Hmm.
one of the things that many people have to get right is how they view their family. Where do they view
Wow.
their family within their life? Some
Hmm.
people
Mhm.
view their family as one of the top priorities. I know, like with my pastor, he always says, he gives us a pecking order, like God, family, your career and everything. So it's like a pecking order. Most people in the world that we live in nowadays, like you said, because of the strain of relationships, they
Hmm.
don't deem their family as one of the top
Hmm.
priorities. So one
Hmm.
of the things we have to think about is not only having that oneness with our brother and our sister, or our parents or our in-laws or your grandchildren or whatever the case may be, but having that place of saying, I hold my family in a top priority realm.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
you think about that, that actually impacts everything else. Most people in the world we
Hmm.
live in don't they don't put their family as a top priority. And because
Hmm.
of it, they wonder why that their
Hmm.
family is going through what they're going through. But part of it is because you're not making your family a priority and putting work into it so that it
Hmm.
can grow and flourish and be what it needs to be, even after the election.
Right. So invest now because and invest on a consistent basis because there are things that happen in our lives. There's things that happen in the world. There's things that happen on a continual basis that I need to invest in my support system because I don't know when I'm going to need my support system.
Mhm.
And the more I lean on my support system on a consistent basis, and that's what I'm hearing all of us say, is that the reason why people often ask us, how are y'all so successful? How, with things that have happened in your lives, how come y'all didn't, fall down? Or if you fell, you didn't fall for long? Or how have you been able to keep going? And that's because we have each other. And so family relationships are one remedy for reducing stress and anxiety and fear about the future.
Yeah.
The fact that I know that I have four sisters that, even though we don't agree, even though we don't see things the same, even though we don't have the same experiences, the same job, I know that if I yell out for help, if I say I'm feeling depressed, if I say I'm feeling fearful and anxious, I know that I can call any one of my sisters And they will, if they don't do anything else but sit next to me, hold me,
Mhm.
support me, you
Mhm.
understand? Say,
Mhm.
what's going on? And I think that in this day and time, when we're talking so much about stress, so much about mental health issues, so much about people needing, so much about people needing help mentally, that I think that one foundational part of our help is right here in our same household.
Mhm.
We know that after as the pandemic happened and as we've increased ourselves being sheltered in place, we know that some families have improved. Some
Right.
families have done, like Sierra said, has done nothing. We couldn't do anything else because we
Mhm.
don't have but talk to each other. But
Mhm.
we also know that there's some families that this election and all of the stress of this time has caused an even greater wedge, an
Mhm.
even greater divide, and that people are being abused, people are being ostracized, people are being isolated. And so, as we're talking about what can we do to support this. I want to thank my sisters for helping to shed that camera, putting that camera on this issue, focusing in on the things that we feel as individuals around
Mhm.
this election and how that does impact us as a family. It does impact our thoughts about our future, about where we going to go. And it also causes us to sit down and say, you know what? My nephew said, man, please, why are you stressing over this? You know,
Mhm.
let's figure out what we're going to do. Let's
Mm.
as a
That's
family
true.
develop our plan.
That's
Mhm.
And
it.
we're going to believe that as we develop our plan as a family, we cast our vote already. Every one of us voted already.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So our job is done. Our thing is set. But the question then becomes, what's going to happen when we find out who is? Does that mean our family is going to fold? Does that mean our family is going to curl up? Our family is going to go into a corner and say, "Oh well, our world is over." No, we're still planning.
Yeah.
We're still writing down
Mhm.
ideas.
Mhm.
We're
Right.
still coming together and collaborating. And
Mhm.
I'm so grateful to have a group of intelligent, wise, funny, great people, loving people that's my family. And like I said, we didn't get here overnight. And
Exactly.
Right.
every day we are continuing to develop ourselves as a
Mhm.
family. What does it mean to be a family?
Right.
And how do we need to be in 2020 or 2021? How does our family need to change? Because our families are going through a lot of stress. And one thing I've said about stressful times, stressful time and crises often show you where your holes are.
That's right.
And so I
Right.
want to thank my sisters for being on. I want to thank you, Daiquiri, Monique, Azure, and Sierra, for joining me for this conversation just to talk about the family, what
Yeah.
we are experiencing. So thank you so much for
Problem.
being with me and helping to focus in, being that camera to several people. You shed light on the topic and you help us focus in on it. What it's like as individuals, what it's like as a family. What are some things we've done?
Mhm.
Another thing we do, we laugh and we joke a lot, and we
Okay.
Right.
and I make a lot of songs. I got
There you
muscles.
go.
I make a lot of songs about us,
Please, should have wrote
and
jingles.
so that
And also,
those things
we need to,
Wrote
and
we
also,
laugh
jingles,
a lot.
girl.
We laugh
and
a lot.
also,
Mhm.
just real quick, we just also need to be mindful and thankful and
Yeah.
think about, this is a time where you can actually think about what is important
Yes.
in your
Yes.
life.
Yes.
Is it
Yeah.
important to um be out in the street, or is it important just to sit home?
Hmm.
And hey, let the money collect in the bank if you're working, just because you have nowhere to go.
That's
So
right.
think of it in a different manner, as if as opposed to, oh my God, I'm locked down, I can't do anything. So
Hmm.
do what I did. I started doing Tai Chi. Hey, and although the kids laugh, it's been helpful.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
go
I mean, people, the pandemic has been, it has been stressful for a lot of people, and there have been some financial losses. I mean, I even suffered a little bit of
ahead.
financial
Hmm.
losses. I actually lost an extra job, but it's okay because God has sustained me. But one thing that I will say that's been good is that, during this pandemic, I've lost weight. And who would,
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the doctor and doctor's like, okay, you got to stay here. And I'm like, okay. But I also believe that God wanted me here too.
Mhm.
Everybody is going through something during this pandemic, during this election.
Mhm.
But we also need to remember this, and this is something I remind my students all the time. Number one, this too shall pass. It will not last forever. This state cannot last forever. And
Yes.
it will end when God wants it to end. And then that's it. No more, no less. So, what are
Right.
we going to do? We need to just come in, examine ourselves.
Mhm.
Examine ourselves, because that's what this is the only time that I mean, in my lifetime, in anybody's lifetime, where they shut down the churches,
Mhm.
the stores, some of the stores, the food place, everything shut down.
Mhm.
So it's a time to go in, magnify the Lord and shut it down and become
Mm-hmm.
aware.
Okay, you guys. Thank you
Yes.
for
Thank
being
you.
on tonight. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thank
all
you.
for
Thank you.
being on with
Bye
me.
bye.
And yeah, bye bye. And so we're going to continue to move, and we're going to go into in the last few minutes that we have together. I thank you so much for being with us, but I want to leave you with our action steps. We always want to leave with three things that you can do to improve your look and your outlook on this topic of election stress, being mentally prepared as a family for the results. How is your family going to fare? The first thing I want you to do is acknowledge the results. As a family, come together, and you may be watching the results of the election or what people are thinking, about the election, and you may be watching it together, watching the results, but that's okay. Acknowledge the results. Acknowledge the shock you may feel. Acknowledge the immediate feelings you may have. And then, because we're talking about dealing with this as a family, talk to your family. A lot of times when people are having difficult times, they like to isolate. They say things like, oh, I don't want to burden my family with this. But your family member is sitting on the other side of the room saying, oh my goodness, I don't want to burden my family with this. And so a lot of times we have similar thoughts about the topic. Come together and share. Come together and share your feelings. Acknowledge the shock, acknowledge the results, whichever way it goes, acknowledge it and share your feelings. And for B, we want to give you A, B, and C. For B, build your wellness. Take the time to laugh. Like I told you, we laugh a lot in our family. Activities to bring you joy. Our family started a family Bible study that made we go out walking together. We exercise together. We cook together. We'll FaceTime and show each other meals. Focus on what's going right, not what's going wrong. And this is where family is so important, because in this time post election, you are going to need to focus and to connect with people that you love. And so, A, acknowledge the results. B, build your wellness, build your support system. If it's your family, build it. And I know we talked about the fact that some people's families, their relationship is going to take a little bit longer to get together. Then whoever you're deciding is your family. Don't be alone with these the feelings and these thoughts. Share it with someone. And then C, control what you can. There is not some things you can control. You cannot can change everything. You cannot control everything. You cannot control other people. I love my sisters to death, but I know very well we are all independent, strong-willed, powerful thinking women. And I know I can't control them. So stop trying. What is in your control, control. Meaning you can control how much TV you watch. You can control how much you talk about the topic. You can control the way you scroll your feed. You can control when you feel yourself getting worked up and angry about the election and getting frustrated and getting upset. You can control stopping and pulling back for a moment. You can control that. And you can also release those things that are outside of your control. One thing that's outside of your control is who's going to win this election. You cast your vote. Your family might have already made a decision and cast your family's vote. Let it go. Because after this, you are not able to control the results. Continue to plan with your family. Continue to sit down and realize that life will go on. Your life will not end November the 4th, regardless of the results. And so make the decision that you and your family are going to continue to move forward in your life. That if your family is thinking about plans, keep planning. If you and your family need to have those conversations to rebuild relationships, have those conversations for your mental wellness, for your stability, for your ability to move forward. Continue to have your family and your support system by your side. And as always, as I say every week, if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed to the point that you are not able to get up in the morning, you're not able to do your daily activities, you're feeling at a point where even in your family, there may be several family members that are not able to do as they normally do. My friend, family, I'm talking to my Facebook family, my YouTube family, my replay family, it's time to get some help. Go to your nearest emergency room. Go to your primary care physician. If you're in crisis, call 911. Let them know I'm having a mental health emergency. If you don't feel comfortable calling 911, go to the emergency room. Call your doctor. Don't let your family suffer the stress and anxiety of this election alone. Don't let your family believe that they're isolated in their fears. We're all concerned about our future. We're all concerned about what tomorrow's going to bring, what's going to happen after next week. But one comfort that I have that we shared on tonight is that ain't nothing but like family. Family can help you through this time. Family can support you. Family can even be those eyes on your life that you may not have because maybe your outlook is dark right now. So what I'm saying is family can help change your mental wellness. It can help change your look and your outlook. And so I encourage you to strengthen your family relationships in this time. Don't let the election be a bone of contention. Don't let the election tear your family apart. Like my sisters say, have your arguments, honor people and respect people's opinion, and then let it go. Let's get back to being family. Let's get back to building our family plan and moving forward past this election. Because you know what? In another 4 years, there'll be another one. But in the next 4 years, I want to be in a place that is a happier place for me and my family. And so we're going to continue the conversation. Next week, we're talking about getting ready for the results. Next week, we're going to continue with election stress, and we're going to talk about post-election stress. There are going to be some people that are going to be happy next week. Some people are going to be sad. And depending on if we get the results of the election, there are going to be some of us that are still sitting in limbo. And so this is Dr. Nicole with Headshots. Please like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Headshots Podcast. And remember, every Friday at 6 p.m., we're here with a 1 hour conversation on mental wellness to improve your look and your outlook on life. Thank you for being with me and my family. I hope you and your family have a good evening. Thank you so much. See you next time.